Uh, Hi everybody. So as known, this tutorial is going to cover the basic and medium complex features of C++ language. And the prerequisite for this is C language. Okay. So hope we are going through the presentations and the examples. Uh, okay. Questions given for C language. So that works as a foundation for C++ language. Right. So before we get started with C++, so let us see what are the basic features which are available. Okay. So what is the basic nature of C++? See, as known, C is a procedure-oriented language. Okay, in which the entire application is divided into a number of procedures or functions. Okay, so one function is invoked from another function to perform the final uh, functionality. Okay, but in case of C++, okay, the basic nature of it is it's a object oriented language. Okay, so what are the advantages of object oriented compared to procedure oriented language? Means there are a number of advantages. One of it is reusability, okay, inheritance. Of course, inheritance is also one of the way of reusing an existing code. Okay, etc., etc., which we will see it uh, in this session or next sessions. Okay, fine. So overloading, inheritance, polymorphism, exception handling, templates, okay, and a standard template library, okay, which has basically all the data structures implemented, stack, queue, etc., set, okay, which are ready made and which we can directly use. Okay, right. And namespace. Okay, so we are going to see brief about each of these concepts in the C++ sessions. Okay, fine. So these are the basic features of C++. Right. So now slowly let us dive into object-oriented programming. See, as known, C++ is a superset of, it is generally said that C++ is a superset of C language. Initially, the name of C++ was C with classes. So that means C++ has all the functionality which is available in C. Okay, right. Okay. So what is an object-oriented program and what are the terminology of it? Means an object-oriented program, so we will have class, object, encapsulation, abstraction, of course, inheritance, polymorphism, reusability, etc. So these are the terminologies which are used. What is a class? What is an object? What is the difference between them? We'll be looking at it in next few minutes. Fine. Now, as known, C++ was initially called as C with classes. And basically what I want to emphasize here is C++ does have all the primitive data types which are in C language, which are int, short, char, long, and the related keywords, which is signed, unsigned, etc. And the keywords used for loops, what that is for loop, while loop, do while, if else switch, it is almost exactly like C language. Okay, so assuming that it is being covered in C language, so we do not want to uh, cover that once more, okay, in these sessions. And similarly, the C language operators, all these arithmetic operators, logical operators, and conditional or ternary operator, etc. And the data structures, which are arrays, okay, and even pointers also are supported in C++. Fine. So, assuming you had gone through the C language presentation and the assignments, okay, and we are assuming that you already have um, okay knowledge on these C language concepts. Okay, fine. Now, first of all, see, a class is a fundamental unit of a object oriented program. First of all, what is a class? What a class has means. A class has data members, member functions, and constructors. So what are each of these? We are going to see that in some time. Okay, right. Okay. So if you take a class, okay, so what all it has, how it looks like. Let us take a look diagrammatically. Okay. So a class has data members. Okay. It has methods. This is nothing but exactly like the functions in C language. Okay, right. And there can be constructors. Okay, so what is a constructor? We are going to take a look at an example in next few minutes. Okay, fine. So a class is a fundamental unit. Just like in a procedure-oriented language like C, function is the fundamental unit. Similarly, in case of object-oriented, class is the fundamental unit. You may have a number of clarifications. What is the advantage of class? Okay, so you'll get some clarity, okay, during later part of this session, right? See, whenever there is a problem which need to be solved, say for example, you want to develop software for a online retail shop. Okay, so you need to take the entire problem and divide the functionality into a number of classes. Okay, say if you take an online retail shop, there can be a class called product. Okay, and there can be a class called buyer. So when there is a class like a product, so what is the data associated with that product? It can be the ID of the product. It can be name of the product. It can be the maker of the product and what is the X, okay, and maybe some more details, maybe remarks on the product. That means rating, etc., and the category to which it belongs. So all these are data members, okay, and there can be a functionality associated with that product. Okay, the functionality means nothing but the set of methods, the behavior, okay, which is exposed by this class. Right. Say, for example, buying a product, say deleting a product, okay, can be considered as some of the methods which are associated with this product. And what is a constructor? A construct also is like a method, but it is a special method which is used for creation of object. Okay. So I do not want to emphasize much on constructor at the moment. Okay. We'll take a look at that in next few minutes. Okay. Right. So if you take a look at this example, see, we have a class demo. Okay. So let me just zoom it. Okay. Right. See, here we have a class demo. Basically, that has two data members, X, Y. And here we see a keyword public, which we have not yet discussed. So you may ignore this at the moment. Okay. And there are two methods or functions, you can say, associated with this demo. One is set method. Okay. Basically, which takes X and Y from the keyboard, and one is display method. Okay. It's a simple class which has two data members, two functions, methods. Okay. Now, how do we utilize this class? See, a class is a user-defined type. Just like we have a int, it's a primitive type. So whenever I want a variable of type int, what do? We declare a variable for that. Then only the memory is allocated. After that, you can use it to perform computations, etc. Fine. Now, similarly for a class, we need to create a variable, but here there is a special name given to that variable which is called object. Okay, so how do we do it? This is the way. So this is the demo, this is the name of the class. It has to be, C++ is a case sensitive language, so actually this has to be the small letter. We will see that when we write the example. Okay. Right. And this is the object. You can give any name for that. Okay. And with that, you can invoke the methods of that class. Okay. To perform the required functionality. Right. Let us see an example and then discuss more about object oriented. Okay. Fine. So, first of all, see, before we discuss a class, let us just take a look at a very simple hello world program in C++. Okay, right. So here we are including the IO stream. IO stream is a header file in which there is cout. Since I want to display, I want to use cout. Cout is an object of OStream. Okay, which we will be taking a look bit later. Okay, and I just want to print hello. This is my first C++ example. Okay, fine, right. And here there is a feature called namespace in C++ language, and this cout is in std namespace, and hence we are trying to specify here that we are using std namespace. Okay, so that cout gets recognized by the compiler. Okay. Anyhow, we are going to discuss more in depth in the coming session for that. Okay. Right. And if you come to the editor or IDE, here I'm using Eclipse. You may use Turbo C, or in case you have difficulty in setting it up, then definitely you can use IDE1.com. Okay, right? So there are multiple options. Okay. If you have access to Unix, Linux based platforms, then you can use GCC compiler. Okay, right. So here you can just type the program and you can execute it. And please mind that you need to select C++ here. Okay, all right. So the name of the URL is the name of this website is ide1.com. Okay, right. It is very easy. You have to just copy paste the program here, or maybe you may need to type the program here and just execute. Fine. So let us run it. This is okay. Right. So let us execute it. It is building. There is a small error. This is not the syntax error, but it's related to the environment. So I'm just trying to sort it out. Fine. So now let us try to re-execute it, rebuild and execute it. So now we are able to execute this. Okay. Simple first program. Okay. Right. Now let us discuss, let us see an example for the class. Okay. So let us type the previous example. Okay. Uh, and let's make it work. So why don't we change this existing program itself? Okay, right, fine. So the keyword is class. This specifies that, okay, the associated block of code is related to a class. So let me create a demo. Okay, the same program which we had seen in the presentation. So there are a couple of data members in this. Okay, right. And there were a couple of methods in that. So one is to basically to take the input of X and Y from the keyboard, and the other was to display. So void, so let us have the name as get values. Okay, and since this is a method, right, okay, it is a function. Okay, so it can have a number of statements inside this. Okay, right. So I'll just print as enter values of X and Y. Okay, right. Let me give us endl. Endl is just like a new line. It is also a manipulator. It is called as manipulator. Okay, it is just like a new line. In case you do not want to use endl, instead you can very much use this escape character. Okay, instead of that. Okay, right now. So once the user sees this message, he will enter the integer values from the keyboard. So we need to write a statement which takes input from the keyboard, which is entered by user. Okay, So let me enter that into X and Y. So cout is a inbuilt object in C++, which is used for printing printing onto the console, and cin is used to take the input from the keyboard. Okay, right. Next is, so I just want to display values. Okay, right. So whenever this specific method is invoked, I just want to display, right, whichever values are in X and Y. Okay, X is uh, so now I want to print the value of X, so I need to give X. If I give the X inside this, it will be printed as string. But in case I want to print the what is the value inside that, I need to specify it, okay, separately, not in the double quotes. Okay, right. So fine, let me put it as X and let me enter. Okay, and cout Y is, sorry, Y is enter. Okay, right. So here we have a class, okay, which has data members and which has methods in it. It does not have constructor. So let us ignore constructor at the moment. Okay, fine. Okay. So here we have a user defined data type which we have created. Okay. It is a data type just like a int. Okay. Now, whenever I want to use a class, I need to create a variable for that. That is nothing but an object. So if it is a normal integer, how do I create variable? I just say int k. In the same way, now I want to create a variable for our demo class. Okay, so I'll name it as objd. Okay, right. Now memory is allocated for this object. Okay, and it has data. We can give the data for this xy and use it. Okay, all right, and invoke the methods. Fine. Let us invoke it. Invoke the methods. Okay. So in this, okay, let me call this. So whenever this is called, the control goes here, which prints this one and which takes the values. Okay, right. Now, once this is done, I just want to print, sorry, I just want to invoke the other method which prints the value, which is display values. Okay, right, fine. Okay, so in case you are first time dealing with object oriented, there may be some difficulty in understanding what is a class object. No problem, we will see some more examples so that uh, we get comfortable with object oriented software systems. Okay, right. So let us execute it. Okay, so here actually, whenever we don't give any access specifier, compiler takes it as private. So even though we haven't discussed what is an access specifier, uh, just to solve this, I'm just putting public. So once I put public, then only I'll be able to I'll be able to invoke this functionality outside the class. Okay. Anyhow, we'll be seeing the access specifier functionality in next uh, few minutes. Okay. Right. Now let us try to rebuild and execute it. Okay. So it asks enter the value of x and y. So let me enter as 12 and 54. Okay. So can you see it? It is printed 12 and 54. Okay. Right. So we know what is a class, what is an object. Fine. Now I have some questions for you. How many objects we can create for this demo class? Okay. Right. It is 0 or more objects. Just like you have an integer. How many variables you can create for a int? You can create as many as you want, unless there is a memory. The same way, you can create any number of objects of this demo class, okay, based on your requirement. Okay, right. So how we can create one more object of it? Very simple. Okay, so instead of typing, let me try to copy and paste it. Okay, to save the time. So I want to make it as obj uh, e. Okay, right, obj e, obj e. You may have some more questions that do I need to invoke all the methods in that and in the same order? Not necessarily. Okay. See, there may be a number of methods which are existing in a class. You can invoke the one which you want in whichever order, okay, based on your requirement. Okay. Now let us execute again. One, two. See, again it is asking for on one more row. Okay, 5, 6. So here we created two objects for demo class. So each object will have a separate copy of X and Y. Got it? Fine. Okay. Right. So still you may have some more questions on object oriented. Definitely it will get cleared in, okay, in this session or next sessions. Okay. Right. Fine. So now we know what is a class, what are the data members. Okay. And there is no rule you need to have only two data members. You can have multiple data members of different types. Okay, right. Okay, fine. Okay. So here, how many objects can be created for a class? It can be any number of objects. Right. Now, we had seen class, we had seen object. An object is an instance of a class. Okay, right. One of the doubt you may be having is why we need to use a class means. See, the advantage of a class is it improves the reusability of the code. Okay. Why we need to improve the reusability of the code means it makes your code more compact, maintainable. That means easy to fix the bugs, to change the fix, to change the functionality. And it is more modular. so that it improves the readability and understandability of the code. So why we need readability and understandability of the code means once you develop the code, okay, that may need to be changed to add new features or to fix and bugs, etc. So it will be easy to read, understand, change it. So the entire functionality is divided into a number of classes. The class is divided into a number of methods, and a class also houses the data associated with that specific class. Okay, right. Okay, so it reduces the complexity of the code. That means it divides the code into a number of pieces. So in case I want to change a functionality in a specific class, I need to focus only on class. I may need not worry about some other classes unless and until I'm interacting with them through the public methods or whichever. Okay, right. So it improves the readability of the source code. Okay, it improves the maintainability or modularity. Maintainability is nothing but fixing the bugs, adding the features to the software system. It improves the code reusability. So, in what way it will reuse means? See, there are a number of ways the code of a class can be reused. See, you have a class, we can create a number of objects for that. So, you are reusing that code again and again. Okay. And there are a lot of other features like inheritance, composition, etc., etc., templates, okay, which really add too much value to the reusability. And for all these templates, inheritance, composition, for all these features, the class acts as a fundamental block. Okay, right. And one more thing is you can control the accessibility of the members. See, in C language, whenever you have a function, okay, uh, you can't control the accessibility of it. That can be invoked from anywhere else. That means by anybody else except you try to restrict it. There is only one level that is within the file. Okay, there are no other levels. Okay, I do not want to discuss much about that here to avoid confusion. Okay, but here whenever you write a class, okay, provided keywords, you can specify that with each data member or set of members, okay, to tell them to specify that uh, where it will be accessed. So what is the real advantage? We will talk about that in next few minutes. Okay. And promotes distributed development. So what is this distributed development means? So these days the software systems are developed across different organizations, across different teams, which are maybe geographically spread across. Okay. All right. So in in one way, this object-oriented system promotes distributed development. That means, so in case we need to develop some 30 classes, so we need to focus only on that. Maybe some other team, they are developing 20 classes. They need to focus on that. Okay, right? So it is easy to, it is easier compared to procedure-oriented, okay, software system. Fine. Okay, so to summarize, what is the real advantage of class means? It reduces the time to market. You can make your software system ready soon, and it will also control the project cost. Okay, right. Now, still somewhere in your mind, you may have some doubt. What is the difference between a class and a object? See, a class is just like a template. A class doesn't occupy any memory generally. Okay, only when you create the object, only when you create the instance of that, it occupies memory, main memory. Okay, right. So just take a water bottle. Okay, so how it is prepared means there is a molder which molds water bottle into that shape. Okay. So that molder gives what is the diameter of the water bottle, what is the shape of it, uh, what is the etc. Okay. So a molder is like a class, water bottle is like an object. So from one molder, you can create any number of water bottles. Okay, all right. So I just wanted to give some real life examples here so that you can try to um, correlate and understand the difference between a class and an object. Okay, so you may go through this PPT now and even offline. Okay, right. Okay, fine. Now you can just take a read of the data members. Okay, so the data members can be of any type. It can be a int, it can be float, char, double, bool, etc. Okay, it can be of, it can be arrays also, it can be pointers also, and class objects. So I do not want to talk about these class objects at the moment as the data members to avoid confusion. Okay, right. So we had a normal data members. Okay, we are not speaking about static data members at the moment. Okay, we will talk about that in next few minutes. Okay, right. So I'll be sharing all these code examples. Okay, so it will be easy for you to execute it and make changes. Okay, to get the insight. Right. Now let us see what is a constructor. Okay, as known, in a class there will be data members, there will be methods, and there will be constructors. Okay, and in these three parts, all three are optional. Okay, data members are not compulsory, methods are not compulsory, constructors are not compulsory in a class. Okay, right, fine. So let us see what is a constructor. Okay, so to give a high level view, a constructor also is a method, but it is a special method. Okay, and the name of the constructor is always the same name as the class. Okay, right. So that special method has the same name as the class, and it does not syntactically return anything. It may or may not take parameters. Okay, right. Now, the doubt is what is the purpose of that special method, which is constructor? Okay, the purpose of special method is this special method constructor is to initialize the object. Okay, see, until now we had seen a class demo. We had created couple of objects for that. Okay, so whenever you create an object, you may want to initialize it. Okay, right. So once it is initialized, then it is ready to be used. Okay, right, fine. Let us see if there are any exact existing code which we can take a look. uh, we have something, uh, simple constructor. uh, okay, code. Okay, right. So fine, let's do one thing. Maybe we can try to do the same change uh, in our code. Okay, all right. Let us change our. Okay, let us have the previous example as it is, so that it will help us in to practice. Okay, right. So let me just move this code there. It is simple constructor. So this is exactly same as the previous one. Okay. There is a change in the method names, and here there is only one method. Okay. I think it is good if you take a look at this as well. The reason is so that you can get more comfortable with classes. Okay. Right. So this is a constructor. Okay. So here it is giving the values for A and B. Okay. Right. Okay. And one more point, what I want to emphasize is, irrespective of how many classes you have in your code, the execution always starts from the main method. Okay, right. In case you have a doubt what is the flow, you can try to debug it, or you can try to put cout statements and see what is the flow of the execution. So here we are creating the object, okay, uh, of example class. Okay, right. This get ch may not be really required. It is required if it is a console application. Okay. All right. Now, so where the constructor gets invoked means, are we calling it anywhere explicitly? We are not calling it. Whenever you create the object of the class, automatically it invokes the constructor. Okay. Right. And here, if you see closely, the constructor is not taking any parameters, but there can be constructor which access parameters. And one more thing is, the name of this constructor is same as class name. It has to be same. Okay, right. So it always gives the values 10 and 20 to any number of objects which are created. Okay, so let us execute it. Okay, so we are able to execute it. Fine. Okay, so here we have seen the constructor without parameter. Okay, fine. Now let us take a look at parameterized constructor. Okay, right. See, here if you see the constructor, okay, I am always hard coding the values of 10 and 22 and B, okay, which may not be realistic, okay, in a real program. The reason is, if I always hard code it to 10, 20, it may not work. Okay. Say for example, I have a class name as person, and I have name, age of the person. If I always put the name of the person as Rama, and age is always 23, okay, that may not make sense. The reason is, if you create 100 objects of that class, all 100 will have the same data. Okay, right, fine. So the more realistic way means, you need to take it as the where dynamic values through the parameters and initialize the data members accordingly. Okay, right. So who will pass the parameters? Whoever want to create the object, they pass the data to the constructor. Okay, right. They may. Okay, so here it is being invoked from the main method. Okay, right. So here, from here we need to send the parameter. So let us take a look at the examples. Okay, so it is parameterized constructor. So here we are taking, I am removing this, right, object as the parameter. Sorry. So from here we are passing the values. Okay. So it goes as parameters. Okay. And it is being initialized. So always I read the assignment from the right side. That means the value of x is put into a, the value of y, whatever value is in y, that is put in b. Okay, right. And at this point of time, I just want to discuss the scope and lifetime of uh, data members parameters. Okay, right. See, these parameters to a constructor or let it be to a method can be accessed only within the body of that constructor or method. Okay, right. That is the scope and lifetime. Okay, right. So they are not available beyond this point. Next, these data members can be directly accessed by all the members, okay, of the class. Right. Next, fine. In any case, you create a variable here. Okay. Say you create float ABC. Okay. Or float QRS. Okay. The scope and lifetime of this is only within this method. Okay. Right. Right. So whenever you need any variable, just analyze whether you want locally within a method or you want it as a data member, okay, based on your requirement. Right. So here you can create multiple objects of example and you can pass these values. Of course, here it is hard coded. Instead, you can take from a keyboard here, okay, or you can take it from database or from whichever source. And okay, so you may create one more object and pass different values. Okay, so let me pass here 25 and here say 36. Okay, okay, so let us execute it. Let me just parameterized constructor. Okay, okay. We have a compiler error. Good that we got the error so that uh, we'll get a chance to go and fix it. So here I have a variable that is an object, and again I'm using it. Okay, so I cannot have multiple variables with the same name in the same scope. Okay, let me just put it as object one. Okay, all right. Okay, right. Let us rebuild. Okay, so the error has gone. Okay, so as you can see here, in constructor is executed multiple times. Okay, all right, fine. All right. In case you want it to get it formatted properly, then you may put ended here so that every time this line always gets printed in the middle. Okay, or you may also prefix it with new line escape character. Okay, all right. So let us see. Okay, Okay, fine. Right. So, just to recap, we have seen what are the main features of C++. Then we have seen object-oriented concepts. Then we have discussed that all the functionality of C language is available in C++ keywords uh, and operators and data types, primitive data types, and all. Okay. Then we have seen what are the features in C++ language. Okay. Then we have seen what is a class, what is an object, and what is a constructor method, right? Parameterized constructor. Okay. All right. Now let us discuss uh, something about static members. Okay. See, when you see here, we have declared A and B. Okay. But that is not of static type. Okay. Okay. Those are not static. Right. All right. Before we discuss about static, I have a question related to object and data members. For example, say I have a class, we have a class example, and I create 10 different objects of this class example. Okay. So my question is, how many different copies of A will be there? Okay. So the answer is 10 different copies. The reason is every object will have a separate copy for the data member. Okay. Right. So that is the nature of non-static member. That means if you don't put static, then that is a non-static member. Okay, which are more frequently used as data members. Okay, right. In some cases, you may also see a static data member. So, what is the purpose of it? What it is? Okay, right. We will talk about that. Before getting into that, I just want to say that when the memory is allocated for this int a, which is a data member of this class, means whenever you create the object, that time the memory gets allocated. Okay, fine. Now, what is static means? Whenever you declare a data member as a static, okay, okay, it means that there is only one copy of that data member. Always, there is only one copy of that specific data member, always, irrespective of the number of objects you create. Say, for example, we have a class parameterized constructor. That is okay. Let me create one more copy of it so that we can change it. Okay, for static. So let me put it as static example. Okay, right. Okay. So here I have a, say for example, I put B as static. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to make static int B. Okay. Right. Then it may not be right to initialize it every time. Okay, uh, right. So let me take one very good example for static. Okay, so let us change the name of this class to circle. Okay, and say I have a radius. Okay, which is the data associated with the circle. Okay, and I have pi. Okay, as we all okay, all right. So this is the best example where I can explain, one of the simplest example where I can explain the pi. See, let us assume you create 50 different objects for circle class. Do you need a separate copy of pi? Not required, because the value of pi is okay. The value is same for all the objects of circle. Okay, and one more misconception is the static is considered as a constant. The static data member is considered as constant. That's not right. Okay, uh, right. So constant means you can't change the value. Static means there is only one. That means this pi is associated with the circle and not with the individual objects of that class. Okay, right, fine. In case you want to declare it as a constant, okay, then you need to use const keyword, const. Maybe you can put that as well, because that very much applies to pi. Okay, right. Anyhow, right. Let's not have it at the moment. Right. So circle. Okay, and I'm getting radius as the parameter, right? And let me assign uh, r to radius. Okay, right. So here I don't say anything. I just display the what is it? I just display the, say, perimeter. Sorry, circumference of the circle. Okay, right. Next, so I'll say CC of circle is okay. Let me calculate here only. Okay, or I can calculate it here. So I'll say float. Okay, so temporary value. Okay, so this is a local variable which is can be accessed only within display CC method. Okay, 2 pi, for me pi is in pi, and r radius is in the radius data map. Okay, right. And let me print this TMP, which is nothing but the circumference. Okay, right. So let me remove this. So let us create object of circle. So I have circle taking one parameter of a circle constructor, and let me invoke OC dot display CC. Okay, right. So it looks okay. Okay, right. So let us build and run it. Excellent. Okay, so we got an error. Okay, because we have the value of p. So let us remove it. It's not there anymore. Okay, right. If you want, we may put endel here. Okay, there is an error. Okay, fine. It is not reflecting the changes immediately. Okay, fine. We have one more error. It says undefined reference to circle pi. Okay, actually in C++, whenever you have a static member, okay, you need to re declare and initialize outside the class. Okay, right. Let's do it. Okay. Mm, looks okay. Fine. So we are able to execute it and we got the result as 72. Okay. So in case, right, you have a doubt on what is the flow, you may put a cout statement here, inside the constructor here, and you can see. Okay. Right. So the execution always executes from, the execution always starts from main method. Okay. Right. Then the control goes to the constructor here. At this point, object gets created in which the data member radius is initialized to 12. And further, we are invoking displaces method, okay, which performs the computation of the circumference and displace. Okay, right. Okay, okay. So this 3.14 value for pi, it continues to be 3.14. Okay, you can change it anywhere, but that change gets reflected for all the instances. I mean, there is only a single copy of static. Okay, and one more point is when the memory gets allocated for static data member means the memory for static data member gets allocated when the program starts executing. Whether you create object or whether you do not create object, okay, right? There is always one memory location, okay, allocated for static data member throughout the execution of the program. Okay, right, fine.